Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Manufacturing Matrix. This is Craig Scott, founder and CEO of Fuuz. And I have a guest on with me today, a fellow founder and CEO of Rolldog CRM, Craig Crawford. Craig, I'll hand it off to you. Give us an intro.
Thanks, Craig. Love the podcast. Thanks for having me on. I've been in the enterprise software space for a long time, both as a product manager as well as in various sales roles. And we can probably tell by the gray hair, but selling enterprise resource planning, supply chain management, and analytics software to small SMB companies right up to large enterprise Fortune 500 companies. And what I really loved about that in my past is just this idea of the challenge of helping companies solve problems that need to be fixed. What was keeping them up at night, and that was always the most satisfying part to me, which I really loved and appreciated that part of my job. What I didn't love about my job was really the standard issue CRM that was provided. And I've used a lot of the big CRMs without getting into specific names, but frankly, they sucked. From a sales rep perspective, they really didn't achieve their objective of helping sales people, get through their sales day. It almost was perceived as a management reporting tool more than anything. And so what they would do is they would use other solutions, Excel, Evernote, different, write down the real information on different systems, and then key in information into the CRM that would kind of appease their manager. And on the flip side, sales management, they really just didn't have the trust in the numbers, the visibility. The forecast was always somewhat suspect. And so again, I always viewed it as a kind of a broken system. And so from that perspective, that's that's really the reason why Rolldog began.
No, I love that background. Thanks for giving us a little bit of background on yourself. I think an interesting journey coming out of enterprise software sales and recognizing the need for better tools for the sales force and bringing Rolldog to the market. So, with that, let's get into the rest of our conversation. What is a CRM, and who's the typical persona that is going to be utilizing a tool like that?
No, that's a fair question. So customer relationship management is what the acronym stands for. And it's really one of those vital tools, I guess, for any organization that really needs to manage their customers or their prospects, and then also grow the business. So from a marketing, a lead perspective, being able to make sure that you're growing the business and keeping track of opportunities and pipelines and forecasts and things like that. And then also this idea of collaboration. So being able to collaborate with people on the inside and people on the outside in a really compelling way, keeping track of activities and email and all the correspondence that goes back and forth and documents. And then it can grow beyond that into project management and service management and all those types of things as well. So it's a little bit of a nutshell in terms of the breadth of what CRM encompasses.
Yep. No, I appreciate that. I think that's great explanation, because the way I look at CRM is a little bit in a similar light to how I view ERP versus like an MES. And what I mean by that is I look at CRM as more of a event driven system, right? We're tracking activities, we're tracking calls, emails. We're getting really it's not just the transaction, it's not just the lead or the opportunity, right? It's all the activity that happens around those things. So coming from an MES background, I look at a lead, or an opportunity like a work order, but I've got everybody on the shop floor that's doing all of these events and activities that I want to track so that I have a full picture of what's really happening. And in my mind, you guys are just up a few layers from where we typically come in, with MES. but you're providing a lot of granular, detailed information to the organization to make, informed decisions on things, how to work with clients and how to move forward with different things. So I think it's pretty cool. Um, Way different than ERP. What you've got a big background in enterprise software, so like it sounds like a pretty big motivator to get you to come over to this side of it and really focus on it's not really a niche, but this one vertical of CRM.
Sure. Yeah. And certainly my background selling ERP, there was always an element of CRM as part of,
Yeah.
but it was always an afterthought. It just always felt like an afterthought anyway. And that to me was, I think, an opportunity to really expand into something that should be a lot bigger and a lot more focused than just an afterthought within a CRM module. Not obviously ERP, as you know, usually starts off as a financial system and grows outwards from there. We start off from a sale, being customer centric within the CRM and focusing on sales and growth, and then kind of growing out from there in terms of helping to manage accounts, et cetera.
Yeah, that's awesome. So how long ago did you start Rolldog?
Well, it's been a long time now, seemingly. It feels like a lifetime. It was 2016 when we first incorporated the company, but really 2017, 2018 was, development in earnest at that point, and working with just a lot of people to make sure we got the recipe right. Because
Yeah.
we always said that, if CRM sucks, how do we make it better? And, that's usually where an idea starts from, is trying to solve a problem. And our problem was, that we were trying to solve is to make sure that, creating a CRM that, the world's going to use. So, we put a lot of effort and thought, but yeah, so really first customer launched in 2019. So it's been a few years now.
Okay, wow. Yeah, that's awesome. And I got a chance to get a demo of the product, before we mutually decided that there'd be a great, partnership opportunity here between our two organizations. And I thought it was really impressive. Much more modern, sleek. I know you've got some, some different AI capabilities that you're leveraging within the solution to provide some really amazing insights to the sales teams. So maybe tell me a little bit more about that, or the folks that are listening a little bit more about how you guys are leveraging AI from a CRM perspective, because I think it's pretty sweet.
Yeah, I mean, AI, of course, is just everywhere these days. We've been really embracing AI for a number of years now, in primarily in the sales aspect. So we have what's called, and I'm sure that we had shown you that in the demo, is kind of our scoring, opportunity
Yep.
scoring capability. And so we've been using that aspect of really looking at all the criteria that goes into whatever sales process or whatever sales methodology that you load into the system. We help you with templates, et cetera. But every single little action you're doing against an opportunity is being measured and scored from, utilizing AI capabilities. So we've got lots more plans this year, really to infuse AI throughout the entire platform. But we've been doing it for a while.
Yeah, I know, when we got that demo, Steve, my head of sales was on that, and afterwards, he's like, "We need this," so he was really impressed by the capabilities too, and us even as a tech company, obviously we use CRM, we've been through
Mhm.
so many different CRMs in the past. I started this around 2015, and we went from Excel to finally some systems, and I'll say every step along the way they've gotten a little bit better, but nothing has really like knocked my socks off. So I was pretty excited to see what you guys were doing, especially from an industrial perspective. I think that's a huge gap in the market when it comes to CRM. There's a lot of general tools out there, that require a tremendous amount of customization and tailoring to really do what you need it to do. And I know a lot of our manufacturing clients really struggle with that, to find something that's kind of like purpose built for, their particular industry. So I liked what I was seeing, that you guys have really focused in on that from your perspective.
Yeah, we try hard to make sure that the system is configurable in all the right areas.
Yeah.
And, we kind of have this white glove approach for helping customers get it set up. And so, we will kind of work directly with the customer to make sure we understand specific requirements and that we're able to configure the system to meet their specific needs.
Now, you guys do a lot of your own implementations yourselves. Do you have a professional services team that'll work with the customer and help them through that process?
Yeah, absolutely. And we
Okay.
just find that customers like that in certain case, like we just know the product inside out, and we've seen so many different scenarios, especially in the manufacturing space, that our customers feel really comfortable with our capabilities, in getting them set up for success early on, uh,
Yeah.
throughout that implementation process.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, we do a few of our own as well. And it's always good to be able to walk the customer through that process to ensure success, and that they get the most value out of the solution as possible. And so that's awesome. So I forget how long it's been now. I think I met you late last year, right? Um, and we got the demo. Think a little bit of time went by. We finally worked through, some of these technicalities of how we might be able to work together, right? How we might be able
Mhm.
to bring the CRM to our clients, and maybe bring some of what we can do, into your clients as well. So I know I have some thoughts on the partnership, and where we can take things and what we can do to help companies. I'm curious to hear maybe some of your thoughts. What made you really, in the first place, even think about, a technology partnership with somebody like Fuse? Tough
I
question.
guess no, it's not actually. It's really quite easy. I'm just thinking of, from our perspective, we're really one of the things we're most proud of with our customer base is that we've got virtually no churn. We over support our customers. We really look after them. It's a partnership. We put our customers at the center of everything. And reaching out and working with partners, we want to ensure that we're able to maintain that quality so that our customers have just as great of experience with our partners that they have with us directly. And, the research that we did, certainly talking to yourself, talking to Steve, saying, I think that's one of those companies that every single one of our manufacturing customers, they require an integration to something, usually ERP, but it could be MES, it could be PLCs, it could be WMS, it could be a lot of different things that they require. And that's not our area of expertise, but we wanted to find someone that really knows that space really well and that we can really trust our partners with so that things don't go sideways, because usually integration works in parallel with implementation, as you know.
Yep.
And so that was really important for us to kind of do that due diligence and, really understand your process. And I think that's where we felt really comfortable saying, hey, here's a partner that we can work with to and feel comfortable handing off to customers to make sure that, again, they're going to be successful.
Yeah, yeah. I think our companies align, very well on that point. Customer success is crucial. We're nothing without our customers, and
Mhm.
making sure that we provide them good solutions that work, that are scalable, reliable, dependable. They're software as a service, right? They wake up in the morning and they expect that it's working. So and we have to earn their business year after year after year, right?
Yeah,
Otherwise, to your point, minimizing churn as a software company is a huge metric that we have to track, and making sure that they're happy and that they're coming back is
exactly.
key. So I really Thought that was an important message that you let us in on when we initially met, because I think so many other CRMs, um, maybe they view themselves as more of a commodity, and, they're happy to take your credit card online and get their payments, and then you don't hear from anybody, and, they're really not invested in your long-term success. So I thought that was a much different approach that you guys take. So, it's very cool. And this is an area that a lot of the manufacturers that we deal with are generally not B2C. They're B2B. They're in the automotive tiers, right? They're selling upstream, or maybe to distribution centers. So I think this whole concept of CRM and sales and marketing is, I wouldn't say foreign, but it's certainly not their strength. Whereas somebody that is heavily involved in more of a B2C type of application, um, I mean, this is just something they live and breathe every day, right? So I see a couple different ends of the spectrum there as far as companies we work with. I don't know if you see something similar, and maybe if you can expand on that a little bit about what is B2C versus B2B, because maybe people don't know what we're talking about there either.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, business to consumer versus business to business. We play in the business to business space. So we are a B2B CRM. We're not transactional based.
Mhm.
Really our ICP, we are a B2B focused on manufacturing and technology as well, but manufacturing is kind of our sweet spot. And to your point, it doesn't matter process, discrete, job shops. You know, if it's a somewhat moderate to complex sales process, that's usually a good fit. If it takes months to close deals, then sometimes years. But if it's days, it's usually not as strong a fit for the opportunity management part of our solution. That said, there's other areas that we can offer, but from a B2B perspective, it's usually manufacturing companies. Just take it a little bit further here. We find, or what we see, is that they're really, really good at engineering and building really cool stuff.
Mm.
But when it comes to marketing and selling those products, that's where they struggle a little bit. And that's where a CRM like Rolldog can come in and really help the company from a growth perspective. Yes, it can manage all the other stuff related to accounts and contacts and email and stuff like that. But it's that growing revenue perspective that we can really add value to. So that's kind of the ICP that we see in the B2B
Yep.
space.
Yeah, I think we see the same thing. And I think I mentioned to you probably before when we met, I came out of ERP as well. A lot of our team, we all came out of ERP. I started a system integrator where we were implementing ERP systems and SCADA and MES and all of that kind of stuff. We never got into CRM. Not because we didn't want, it was just wasn't in our toolkit. But going through that whole process and working with all these different types of manufacturers, I've worked with thousands over the years, in the past 15 years or so, implementing systems. And I've realized the same thing, is that they're all great at designing, developing products. They're not so good at figuring out how to sell those products, or even how to manage relationships with their customers. It's
Right.
a lot of times I've seen that, they sit around and they wait for the next RFP to come in, and there's not a lot of outreach, there's not a lot of account management or customer success from their side, to ensuring that they're always in the forefront of their customers' minds when it comes to new projects, new opportunities. And then I've seen a huge hole, and we've done a lot of custom development as a company for our customers around the whole quoting and estimating process, which seems to be a bit of a black hole for a lot of companies. There's a lot of tribal knowledge. There's a lot of information that's not readily available. What did we pay for that fastener the last time we bought it, right?
Mhm.
Are there, figuring out obsolescence, and maybe that's a layer maybe below CRM, but very tangent to what you guys are doing. And so we see that's one of the reasons why I was so intrigued with what you guys are doing at that level, because we see that as a huge need to be able to tie these groups together: sales and marketing, estimation and engineering, product development. There needs to be some glue that pulls all of these things together.
I couldn't agree with you more. And that is one of the key areas that, from a Roll Dog perspective, that our customers really appreciate, is the fact that we've been able to dissolve some of these walls between different departments within organizations. Because there's a lot of things going on from a visibility perspective. For example, marketing's working on campaigns and leads within the system. It
Mhm.
ultimately gets passed to a salesperson. The salesperson works through the opportunity aspect. They work it from lead to close. They close the deal. Well, then there's all kinds of other workflow that needs to kick off, and contracts needs to be created, and then also, so finance needs to get involved. But in parallel, you're going to want implementation, or you're going to want services, depending on who's installing it or what project is going on with it. And with Rolldog, you can run the two in parallel. So you can hit a certain stage within the opportunity, and it's looking like it's going to close, a 75%, whatever number that's assigned to it. And that kicks off a workflow to let the services team know, hey, we've got a project coming down the pipe. Start planning for resources and materials and people and all that for the project. So engineering really appreciates that visibility coming down into the pipe. And then also, in parallel, you've got customer service agents getting ready once the deal has closed to start prepping for the customer. If we set up the SLAs properly, have we got our service tickets all ready to go? So it all ties together from start to finish in that
Yep.
customer life cycle.
Do you often find that you'll have a lot of I call them engineers, right? But that might be a lot of different roles. Are some of your users in the engineering discipline in these manufacturers?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
that really, when with the release of our project module, which was a couple of years ago, that really brought in that engineering team, because we have,
Yeah.
Gantt charts and phases and time, cost, material, time and cost activities built in to the system that way as well.
Yeah. I think that's a critical module because I think that's a huge gap that we've seen. We get
Mhm.
the deal comes in, we go through forgive my automotive experience, but we get into APQP, right? We do
Mhm.
contract review, feasibility, we go through all these different gates as we're both, pre-sale, but also post-sale. We go into engineering, development, design, validation, process engineering, and all of that good stuff. And it just seems like there's such a wall, between sales and engineering oftentimes, and we're in a Microsoft project, or we're in some other tool that's completely disconnected. We've got all these silos. I thought that was really key. I've got a
Yeah.
few customers top of mind that's like a huge pain point for them, is that handoff, but not really a handoff, because I think sales needs to kind of stay involved through part of this process, right? They've got the intimate knowledge of what the customer's expectations are, and some of the conversations that folks weren't in. So keeping all that in one system, I think that was really smart that you guys built that in. You said you've had it only a couple of years now.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's being available for a couple of years now. And to your point, I mean, there's so many things going on with project. Like, you can have multiple projects related to a single opportunity, or vice
Right.
versa if you want. But you can be in a pre-planning project just to kind of get things organized. Then you've got another project kicking off that gets right into the details, and then you've got maybe a third project that's actually keeping track of exactly how much time is being spent and all that sort of thing. So yeah, we offer a lot of flexibility, and it has been, I think, a real game changer for a lot of manufacturing companies with Roll Dog that way.
Yeah, I could see it because it is, again, it's kind of purpose built is what I was taking away from the demo as opposed to a very, and configurable, right? Very
Mhm.
configurable, but sort of leans towards manufacturing. And there's not a lot of systems out there that kind of specialize in that. So I thought that was pretty incredible. You did show us some of the configurability that's available in the platform. Maybe like tell me a little bit about the different types of manufacturing verticals that you guys can support. Is there anything that's off limits or
Honestly, not really. From a sub vertical perspective, we there's not a whole lot of off limits. I think from an industry perspective, again, it goes
yeah,
back to what they're ultimately trying to accomplish. We get a lot of engineering construction companies with the project management piece of it and the documents and accounts, and then we get a lot that are focused on helping sell, and then we have some companies that use everything from end to end. So it's, I would say, more discrete manufacturing, but in terms of verticals, anywhere from defense to durable goods. It's kind of all over the place.
yeah, as I would imagine, it probably doesn't make much difference discrete process as far as what they're building, right? This is kind of a tangent process to the rest of the organization, so it should be a pretty good fit for just about anybody.
Yes.
Um, yeah, so that's fascinating. Are you guys primarily supporting clients in just North America or abroad, or what does that look like?
So North America and Europe are the two
Okay.
kind of geographies that that we have customers in and we're focused on. I'm sure we'll get brought into more areas as time goes on. Of course, you get into other complexities around multi-currency and multi-language and all that sort of thing. That we do have multi-currency, but multi-language, adding language packs and things like that. We would need to do that in certain parts of the world.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, we deal with the same kind of stuff. And I want to take a break from like all of the really serious conversation here, and I want to ask you a question because people ask me this all the time. Roll dog. Where did you come up with roll dog? And is there a meaning behind it?
Absolutely. There's people ask me that question all the time and ask our team the question all the time. And it was 2001 or 2002. I can't remember the exact year, but it was at an Apex convention, which I'm sure you've been to many.
Yeah.
Cobo Hall, downtown Detroit. We went out with an IBM business partner at the time and had drinks and dinner. And he said, "Okay, Craig, I want you to be my roll dog for the night." What? What?
What does that
What's
mean?
a, wait a minute. What are you talking about? He said, my roll dog, my sidekick, my wingman. And I said,
It's
okay.
like, why didn't you just say wingman?
Yeah, why didn't you just say wingman? Why roll dog? Anyway, it stuck with me. And when I got home, I was it still resonated as being a really cool word that was easy to spell. And
Yeah.
so I registered rolldog.com. This is going back, you know, 20 plus years ago now,
Wow.
when, dot coms were, free for all, Wild West. You could pretty well register anything you wanted. And I didn't know exactly what and when and where I was going to use that domain, but in 2016, incorporating Rolldog, I said, okay, Rolldog, wait, this fits, right? In terms of when we started off kind of as this opportunity management focus in the beginning, and Rolldog, a sidekick, a trusted advisor, a mentor, that's someone that you can that guides you through a process. That to me was a perfect fit for what Rolldog really represented. So, the name stuck. The domain was good. We had secured that
Yeah.
years before. So yeah, that's where it came from.
Oh, that's an awesome story. I wish we had a good story like that. I've actually never heard the term roll dog before. Of course, I've heard wingman. but that's kind of funny. And
Yeah.
it does make good sense. It's a great fit. That's funny how things kind of work that way, I suppose, right? I mean,
Right.
man, that's wild. It's a long time ago. So there was a seed planted many, many
Right
years
here.
ago in the back of your brain
Mm.
that that this was going to happen. Um, yeah, I think there's something like that with founders, right? Like you never really know what the thing is or what the event or whatever happened in your past, but there's always, I think, one kind of pivotal, moment where something
Yeah.
like that, right? It just sticks. Cool story.
Yeah. Yeah.
You got
It's,
any kind of like maybe cool roadmap initiatives that you could share with me, what you guys are looking at doing, next, what's big?
I mean, we're constantly rolling out just new feature functionality, and
Tons
a
of
lot
new
of it's driven
features.
from our customers, right? There's some, we get some amazing feedback from our customers saying, "Hey, it would be really good if you," and 9 times out of 10, we take that information, we put it in a priority queue, get it into development, and release it. Customers love it. The platform gets better and better. We come out with a roadmap every year. This year, it is just AI dominant. It really is, because yes, we're releasing some big modules this year. We're doing this month. We're doing sort of this full contracts module, better integrations to different tools. But now that we've got a kind of this all-in-one platform, it's what can we do to make it better, more efficient? And really AI fills a lot of those gaps in terms of, there's so many data points that we capture in the system. Conversational agentic AI is really, makes a lot of sense. Like, hey, how many meetings did it take to get to this particular demo? How many demos did it take to close a deal on the sales side? Just being able to ask questions and get more, like, I think, better information related to all of those KPIs that are available in the system in really kind of a cool, easier way. So
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah, that
That's
makes
AI
that
is
makes sense.
all over our foot, DNA this year.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Are you guys are you guys gonna kind of build out your own like LLM, SLM, and bake that in?
That's the path that we've gone down.
Okay.
We're certainly leveraging a lot of tools, like I think the ones that you use as well, from off the shelf. I know you're a big cloud user, right?
Oh yeah.
And a big
Yeah.
cloud advocate. So
Cloudy boy.
those,
Yeah.
yeah, Cloudy Boy, those make a lot of sense for us in certain areas. We also need to. I'd love to get your take on this. Do you ever get, yeah, like, from an AI perspective, do you ever have customers that say, "Hey, we got to watch our data. It goes out. It
Mhm.
needs, we need to do something with it, bring it back into our system." Do they ever say, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, wait a minute, that might not be, what we want"? Or what's
Yep.
your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, certainly with the type of data that we're managing oftentimes, process control recipes, right? Things like that, a lot of proprietary information in a lot of ways that we're storing in the system. Key metrics about performance, efficiency. A number of our clients are publicly traded organizations. So the last thing they want is like any of that detail getting out.
Sure.
So we find a couple of things. I like the frontier models. I like Claude. I like Chat. I like Gem. I like the frontier models because
Mhm.
they're going to be stronger and better than anything I can build myself. I'm not a multi-billion-dollar organization with teams
Sure.
of hundreds of developers, but
Yeah.
um, I like those in a couple of ways, and we're using them internally for our engineering team to help build things faster and more efficiently, right? But we're also using them on our implementation team to help us when, MES is a lot of customization, right? As you know, you go on a shop floor, everything, is unique. Every different manufacturer's got a different process. So we do a lot of tailoring in our implementations. So it's instrumental there. It's cut our deployments about 60 to 70%. For customers, end users, I'm not sure that I want operators on the shop floor interacting with any kind of AI tools quite yet,
Mm,
right? I'm just that's not where my head's at yet, and I don't think any of my customers are quite there yet. But for engineers, for people that want to do analysis, BAs within the organization, I see a lot of the bigger companies we work already have an AI strategy in place. They're already using a platform, Bedrock or something that's already out there. They've already got everything sandboxed, and so what we try to do is just plug in and meet them where they're at. We try to utilize what tools they've already got there. And also, you mentioned something to me before we started the call, right? The power strip. You know, we need to get into that
mm,
a little bit more, but the idea of Fuuz as a power strip that all these different systems are plugging into um, makes it increasingly difficult for us to train a model that's going to be, repetitive and deterministic for our customers. We don't know what data we're getting, what the context is of any of this information, because today it might be stuff we're pulling out of Rolldog, and tomorrow it might be something we're getting out of Oracle or Windchill, right? And all those different domains require a lot of different domain expertise. And so again, why I'm big on the frontier models. But if I were you and I were Rolldog, I would absolutely probably go down the path of building a first class, native AI capability. So it makes total sense. I was just curious where you guys were going with that. And analyzing those deals and opportunities makes a ton of sense, because we do that with our CRM right now. And I'll admit we're not using Rolldog yet, but we're using a much worse CRM. It'll remain nameless, but
mhm,
we're exporting stuff from our CR, like CSV files, right? We're just like
mm,
exporting information, feeding it into AI and doing that. And it's okay, but it's painful. And I think some first class tools, I like the approach that you guys are taking. Um,
mhm.
so yeah, so we might have to talk about getting us hooked up with a license here pretty soon, because yeah,
And
I think Steve would be really happy about that.
yeah, definitely have that
Maybe I
conversation.
can get a little discount or something.
I'm sure
You
you
never
can.
know. So that's awesome. I mean, how do you guys go about engineering? I'm curious, like product development. You have a roadmap you do once a year, right? I'm sure you work like many of us do, and kind of an agile sprint, methodology, and rolling out new modules and all of that. Um, can you share, like, how big of a team do you guys have?
Yeah, we're a fairly small team. I mean, we've got a handful of people, but we've got the right people. That's the difference. We've got
That
like
makes a huge difference.
I'll take a handful of A players versus a garrison of B players any day. And we've been really fortunate with our product development team. And we've got some amazing developers, both full time, and then we can flex from a contract perspective if need be. But most of the time, we're able to. We've got just some really good people that an idea comes into the brain. We kind of whiteboard it. We go from there. We look research, saying, what will this do for this particular module, if it's focused on that, or just overall for the platform. And from there, we create concepts, mock-ups. We try to break it before it even gets to development, to poke holes in anything, and then it then goes into preliminary, development. We use Jira as kind of our tool, but it's interfaced directly from Rolldog. So all that work is originally done kind of whiteboarding in Rolldog. As service tickets, they get submitted to Jira, and then development team goes, and there's status updates and things like that as they progress through them, and then we get them onto test. And again, we try to poke holes in
Yeah.
everything from there as well. So
Okay.
it's
Awesome.
and then it goes to production, which is once everybody is signed off on it, and it all hangs together and makes sense. But We do a lot of development. We put a lot of money into R&D every year. I mean, probably proportionally more than most companies. Um, as you know, but that's part of our growth strategy as well. So,
Yeah, I think, we're similar there. About 50% of our revenue goes to R&D and D
mhm.
and product development, pretty high. Usually, I hear that number is, sales and marketing spend, not R&D spend. So, we really focus on the product pretty heavily. That's probably something that my sales team, wishes that they had more access to some of those funds, but it goes back to that, I think, that customer support, and making the customer the center of your universe requires that you continue to build the solution. I'm curious, with some of your new features and modules that you got, are those always kind of like an opt-in type of system with the customer, so they have an opportunity to kind of like, try before you buy kind of thing, or like they can turn it on, or is that something you guys turn on for them, or how does that process go?
Yeah, we do actually turn it on for them on and off, depending on the environment. Our pricing model, and everything's changing in the SaaS world these days from a
Yeah.
pricing. We really, one of our key differentiators when we go up against, we battle every day with the big five CRMs, and usability, ease of use, all that stuff is kind of our number one, first, I guess, bullet point. But the second one is pricing, and pricing, affordability. With Rolldog, usually there's a bundle, so the bundle includes a lot. So we try to really understand what the customer needs, and then we put together kind of this bundle for them, so that they're getting what they need today, but also into the future. Like, they're not having to pay extra for it. It's included in the bundle price.
Right,
And
right.
then they can just turn things on as they progress. And I think customers really appreciate that, because a lot of our competitors, I personally have used so many different solutions over my career, and having to sit there with a mouse in one hand and my credit card in the other just is a foolish idea. We said right from the beginning, we're not going to be that company. We want to be fair. We want to be transparent,
Yep.
and not gouge customers from that perspective. So yes, you can turn on modules, turn them on and off as needed, but depending on the bundle, you don't have to pay for
Okay.
access to those modules.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, I like that approach. And is there, and I'm just asking questions because I think it might come up in other conversations. Is there sort of a sandbox or like a test environment that customers can get access to?
We get asked that question a lot as well. We Yes, we do. We do sandboxes on a case by case basis. So we do
Okay.
have the ability to set up, trial environments. Here's why we don't lead with that. I'm sure if all your, potential customers viewing this will be like, oh, okay, I'm going to ask for it. But the problem is, I don't know what your experience with, we'll call it free trials or sandboxes are, but mine and the people that
There's
we've
no
had a lot
value
of.
in free. That's my opinion.
No, exactly. There's no value in free. And what happens is you say, okay, here's a 14-day trial. They log in for 15 minutes at the very beginning, day one. They play around in it, sort of get a sense for it. But because they've had no training, they've had no sort
Yep.
of understanding of what the platform is capable of. Then 15 minutes goes by and they log out. They get busy doing something else. And again, they've got no skin in the game
Yep.
from a dollar perspective. And then the last day, they'll log in for another 15 minutes just before it expires and sort of have the same experience. And so it hasn't been something that we actively promote for those reasons. I just don't think that there's a whole lot of value in that
I agree.
approach. So if somebody asks us for it, what we typically do is, again, a case by case basis, where we'll say, okay, that's fine, we can set you up. But what we're going to ask in return is that you give us, we'll eat an hour or two of our services time
Mhm.
to kind of walk them through the platform, the being able to navigate, how you would potentially configure something. And that has been a lot more successful, because when you've got some background, some training on the
Yep.
on the platform, and it makes sense, then they're more engaged, and those usually turn into paid deals.
Yep, yep. No, I totally agree with that approach. We struggle with the same thing. People ask us all the time, "Is there a free trial?" This, that, the other thing, right? And I'm always, saying, "Well, does SAP give you a free trial? Does Oracle give you a free trial?"
Yeah,
I mean, and it's not the free part that bothers me. It's the user part that they log into a brand new thing, sight unseen, and they start clicking around, and they don't fully understand or appreciate the way things were built or why they was architected a certain way. And to your point, 15 minutes, maybe they get frustrated and they move on. And it's just an unnecessary, futile exercise on their part to go through that without having some kind of hand holding of your services team or my services team. And it reminds me of when, I love my wife, but it reminds me of when she gets a new car. She wants nothing to do with the sales guy showing her how all the things work in the car, right? She just wants to get in the car and drive it home. She's like, I know how to drive the car. And inevitably, a week or two later, she's asking me a question. And I'm like, yeah, it's you go to the dash, right? You click this, but it's in this menu, but she's been frustrated by this thing that she didn't understand for like 3 weeks because she didn't take the time to sit and like get the tutorial. And it's the same kind of thing where it gets to the point where she hates this car because it doesn't have X, Y, or Z feature. And I'm like, oh, it's a Cadillac. It absolutely has that
yeah,
feature. You just don't know because you didn't want to listen to the guy. And so that's kind of the way I think about it. Now, when you become a customer of Rolldog,
mhm.
is there kind of an opportunity, because with all the new features and stuff that you guys release, like, is there kind of a sandbox at that point where I can try something before I don't know if there would be an impact in production, your production environment or not, but how do you guys typically handle that?
Yeah, again, that's kind of on a case by case basis. Usually,
Gotcha.
what happens is that when we do kind of the kickoff call, the transition from sales to services, and services, your account manager will, your service manager will kind of lay out for the customer, the 7-step process in terms of data load and data cleanse and data import, and then setup configuration, training, onboarding, all that, like the full schedule, working towards a go live. Usually there's an administrator involved in that
Yeah.
early period, and the administrator usually gets access to that environment quickly, so they can start playing around in the system and making sure everything's set up. So we really work that way with our customers, and so that by the time the general users of the system log in, everything has been set up for them. It's very
Gotcha.
familiar. All the accounts are all, everything looks familiar.
Yep. Yeah. So it's pretty low barrier to entry for those new users once they get to that point then.
Exactly.
Um, so do you guys typically, in our world in manufacturing operations, prospects are always asking me like, what is the ROI of Fuuz? Are you going to improve my OEE? Are you going to solve my inventory issues? Are you going to make my operators not make, you know, crappy products? So we go through all those types of questions. Do you guys get, similar questions? I mean, what kind of ROI are you going to bring to the business? And I'm curious, like what kinds of
Yeah.
things do you guys typically focus on from that perspective?
There's a couple of measurements or metrics that we use from an ROI perspective, and just really understand what their typical sales process is. That's one of the first questions that
Yeah.
we ask. What sales methodology are you using? Is it BANT? Is it SPIN? Is it MEDIC? Is it signature selling? Is it solutions? Whatever it may be. And then from that, we try to get a better picture of, what's your close rate? So how are you operating today? And what are the constraints? What
Yeah.
are the bottlenecks? And then when we load those methodologies of that process into Rolldog, we really want to mimic that repeatable, what works for them. And if they don't have it, we've got templates, but
Okay.
usually they've got something that they work with. So it really comes down to a lot of times it's just that organization around, hey, what does a lost deal cost you? And
Mm.
what if you could increase your win rate by 10%? What would that mean to your organization? And then we show them kind of this before and after picture with Rolldog, having everything kind of in one spot and being able to score those opportunities and guiding and alerts and being able to see exactly the trajectory of every single deal moving through the system from lead to close. And that becomes really, from an ROI perspective, a huge part of it.
Yep.
Yeah.
That
And then
makes
from a service perspective as well, looking after the customers and being able to, take care of high priority tickets within whatever their SLA window is within Rolldog. I mean, there's obviously that whole, again, customer focus that they see a lot of value from as well.
Yep, yep. In your platform, you guys have like a customer portal that external users have the ability to log into to see quotes or like I guess I'm curious what kind of capabilities you have from that side of it.
Mm, that one is usually handled through a third party, to be
Okay.
honest with you. We can expose whatever it is, but what we do have is a partner portal. So
Okay.
if a company has partners or distributors that need to log in and be looking at specific accounts or other sales metrics or just details like that, you can limit the access for those partners, but
Okay.
not necessarily a customer portal per se for their
Okay.
customers.
All right, that's fair. Um, yeah, we get asked sometimes. I've got a customer that is in the steel business, a steel mill, and
Mhm.
the one thing they told us during the sales process was that this was from the CEO wanted an app that his customers could log into, like the Domino's app was the reference he gave me. Right, they want to see like when their pizza's in the oven, they want to see when the pizza came out of the oven. Um, Different concept for a steel mill. I'm not really sure, that some guy sitting on a construction site's really going to be, digging into that level of detail, but possibly. So I was curious on that. So being that you can interface with other third parties means you guys must have a pretty solid set of APIs that you can expose to systems like Fuuz, of course, and
Yep.
others. I don't want to make any assumptions, but I'm guessing it's all, RESTful APIs where we can query, pretty much anything that we need out, right, to make use of it. Do you have a lot of customers that utilize those?
We are getting, yeah, yes, we do, and more are requesting specific items, specific, APIs be open to them for specific requirements. We're as open CRM as you could get. So we take those usually on a case by case basis as well, but we
Okay.
would much prefer to keep it cleaner, like especially with our customers that have lots going on within their system, to say, hey, here's a solution. It's called Fuuz that you can interface into. So even like thinking about that customer portal aspect, I'm sure that's something that we could potentially partner with to
Mhm.
expose different elements from Rolldog directly into whatever that CMS, that portal might be.
Yep, yep. So that's good. I mean, the customers can just submit a request to you then, and then that goes through your engineering team, or is that a
Exactly.
services? Okay, okay, cool. Um, yeah, I think that's really important that you guys are open to doing that. We've worked with other platforms that are not very open to doing that. They're pretty much, like, well, this is the API we have, and that's the API you're going to get, and
Mm,
usually it's not good enough, right, for the customer. But
yeah,
again, it's customer is the center, right? So we gotta make them successful.
exactly.
Um, yeah, that's awesome. What kind of so you have the consulting, we kind of the white glove consulting, you walk the customers through. Do you find many of the manufacturers that you work with have already adopted a sales process? You mentioned a few. I'm somewhat familiar with, Medic and Bant, right? And Challenger. And um, how many times do you meet a new manufacturer and they don't really know what you're talking about?
More often than you would imagine.
I was gonna
They
imagine that, yeah.
Yeah, especially, yeah, the manufacturing space. Technology is different. They usually have, something. Manufacturing, it's probably 50%. I would say they have something that's kind of working for them, but it needs to be tweaked.
Mhm,
So we'll start with that, and then we'll tweak it from there. With our team, we'll work with them on that. Other ones, you're right. It's like, hey, we've got no system in place. We've got Excel spreadsheets. We've
mhm.
got we're just, kind of winging it to ad hoc everything, and that's fine as well, because that really opens up a lot more opportunity, and they can pretty well get immediate value from that within Rolldog.
Yep, yep. That's, coming from operations, that's sort of what I observed with my sales teams in the past, working in within manufacturers. Oftentimes, like, they would report up to me, and I just found it, so interesting that they never had any insight as to, like, when or where anything was ever gonna happen, right? I mean, we always celebrated the wins, but it was like, we didn't see that coming. And, there's just, well, I had lunch the other day with Bill, right? We had a great conversation. There's a new program coming down the road. Well, I would start asking questions. What's start of production, right? What's the program look like? How many, all these things. And I think it's really getting into the technology world for myself and learning more about these sales processes and understanding, like, who the economic buyers are and all the other players that are involved, right, in that whole sales cycle, and the dynamics and the, all the strategies that are going on, and just asking the right questions. And also, to some degree, the best that you can, holding the customer accountable to that process as well, right? Because
Totally.
sometimes there's not even a buying process on the customer side. And so you get to a certain point, and, we're like, okay, well, the customer loves our software. They want to move forward. What's next? And then the customer is scrambling around, like, oh, we got to get your MSA in front of our legal team. And then it's got to go to procurement, where they're gonna try to beat you over the head for some more discounts and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, if we would have known all of that up front, we could have had a much more structured and much more predictable sales process. And so, as a business owner, or even a head of sales, just having that predictability to be able to forecast and know what things are happening when, and for the rest of the operations, with you guys working with engineers on the project side of it and all of that, so they can anticipate resources and all of that. That's where I see a tremendous value with what you guys bring to the table. And just having been in operations personally, um, I think there's more manufacturers that need a roll dog, that maybe they don't appreciate what that could actually do for them as an
Yeah,
organization. It
agreed.
sounds like you see that. Of course, you should agree. I mean, you're the roll dog.
No,
Um,
everything that you said is exactly what we live every single day. So
yeah.
you're spot on.
So I'm excited about, the partnership here with you guys, and, getting our roll dog connector and getting all that stuff done so we can start to help, um, be some of the glue to tie roll dog in with other enterprise systems, whether it's, PLMs, ERPs, MES. Maybe they're using Fuuz for MES or warehouse management,
Mhm.
providing some of that real time visibility to the sales and engineering teams as they're working through their processes in your system. So I'm excited about that, and I think I'm really intrigued to see what you guys can bring, for our customers as well, that are kind of struggling with this. Maybe they don't know where to begin. Maybe they're some sales teams are pretty prideful, so they may not want to necessarily admit that they don't have all of the tools in their tool belt.
Mhm.
And so if any of you are listening, and I know there's some of you out there, I would encourage you to reach out to Rolldog. And Craig, what's the best way to do that? If we've got somebody that wants to learn more about this.
Well, yeah, so rolldog.com is a good place. There's certainly getting started section where you can contact. We have sales from a sales perspective. I'll just throw out, I guess info@rolldog.com is probably, or
Okay.
sorry, I'm going to take it back. Sales@rolldog.com would be
Okay.
probably the appropriate email um, to send to.
Okay. Just send an inquiry. What kind of info, people are oftentimes a little apprehensive about talking to sales people,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
What kind of information can a prospective customer provide in that initial contact to help, kind of reduce the friction,
Yeah.
so that they can get the answers efficiently?
Yeah, I mean, if they have genuine interest, it could just be as simple as, hey, what are you using today? Any type of CRM, a little bit about their company, and like what type of manufacturing company they're coming from, and listing. I always ask if you can list 3 pain points. That's usually a great start because it gives us a sense of where that pain lies and what we can do. And if we can help, we obviously will. If we can't, we'll be the first to admit, saying there's not a fit here. But that's usually the best thing they can do. And obviously contact, and if they don't want sales to contact them, we can send some information directly via email in terms of product brochures that meet their requirements as well. We can start with that.
Okay. If they're really interested, reach out to
Mhm.
sales at Rolldog.
Yep.
Provide some high level information so you guys can, take a best stab at helping them out. What does the process look like? I know what our process is. We like to have a little discovery conversation, understand the business. What does
Yep.
that process look like for you guys if somebody wants to really get into this?
I think it sounds like it's very similar to what yours is, Craig, and that is set up a kind of an initial call. It could be a 15-minute call, where it's really just us asking a few questions to expand upon the information they provided or haven't provided to us yet, but really just understanding what they're wanting to accomplish. And then from there, and sometimes we do it in parallel, we'll actually do a discovery/demo. We can do just a quick overview demo to show you the platform, make you feel comfortable with it. And sometimes one demo is enough. Other times they want to get other stakeholders involved, and there's sometimes a second, more detailed demo that is scheduled from that. But it's really just understanding what you're looking to accomplish, what that company is experiencing, and seeing if there's a fit. So those discovery questions are great. We kind of work both ways to
Okay.
determine fit.
That's fair. And I always hate when I get this question, but I try the best to qualify it. Implementation, right? Everybody wants to know how long is it going to take, and I totally get it. There's variables.
Yep.
Um, what would you tell somebody to reasonably expect, right? Or what's been your experience, anyways? Like, how long does that typically take? Say what's a good size manufacturer that you guys work with? I know we briefly touched on ICP, but we should probably
Mhm.
clarify that too, right? Two men in a garage, or multi, global enterprise, or somewhere in
Yeah.
between. What's kind
Yeah.
of
No,
the
we
sweet
have.
spot?
Yeah, we have some large enterprise manufacturing companies that are. Sorry. I guess it depends what you're referring to size wise. Like we go pretty well from 5 million up to, let's say, 500 million would be our sweet spot
That's
for
okay. That's a big
revenue.
range. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a big range, and it depends. Like from an implementation perspective, some of the large companies obviously are going to have more complexity. It comes down to, I think, a few things. One is, what modules are they looking to implement? Number one, if it's everything, that can take sometimes months to be
Mhm.
frank, by the time you get everybody put together. And a lot of it's on them in terms of time frame, what they can afford and what they, can, like from a resource perspective. Typically, we measure it in weeks
Okay.
for most implementations. So we're pretty flexible when it comes to that, and we've got a really good implementation methodology that seems to work really well. So I guess long-winded answer is weeks to months. For
Yeah, that's
from
fair.
we're certainly not years. We're not like I came from the ERP world, which would
Yeah.
take years, right? So
Yeah. Okay, that's fair. Weeks to months, 5 million to 500 million. That
yeah.
we've got a ton of customers that fall into that range. Ours are typically 200 million and up.
Mhm.
But I kind of also think there's as we experience as well is that the enterprise may be extremely large and our biggest clients 50 billion in revenue, but when you break down each
Big.
individual site, right? The sites are doing somewhere between 80 and 200 million dollars per site. So when you're putting in
Mm.
solutions like this, oftentimes, maybe it's at a site or multiple sites, it's really still a good fit. So it's just how we kind of talk to our prospects about what this really looks like from a strategy standpoint. Um, so I'm excited to get some of these folks over to you guys. I know a lot of them are currently in the hunt for a solution, probably looking at one of those, you said big five, I guess,
Mhm. Yep.
because everybody does, because that's what comes up when you Google search. But yeah, I'm hopeful that they'll take another look at this and reach out to you guys, give you guys a shot. So with that, I appreciate everything and you coming on today, and it's been a ton of information. Um, Albeit very different information, is a different perspective. We're not usually talking about sales and marketing here, but I think this is important even for the engineers and the operators to understand that typically will watch this. There's a lot of moving parts here. Um, there are processes. We get a lot of process engineers, so they should love the fact that there's actually processes that can be put in place for sales. I think that was always one of my biggest issues. Somebody tosses a folder over the wall and says, "Here, we just got this new order." I'm like, where was the process? Where was I
Yeah.
involved in that? So, I love that you guys help companies overcome some of those challenges, and putting a system in place to kind of reinforce those processes, I think is pretty awesome. So, anything that you'd like to add before we go?
I think this has been a great conversation. I think that the partnership between Rolldog and Fuuz will be a very welcome one for customers and prospective customers, and I'm looking forward to working with your team, Craig, to
Yeah,
make that happen.
awesome. And it's not often you get two Craigs on the same call, so
Yeah,
that's also a bonus for everyone.
huge
Well, I
bonus.
appreciate it. May have a great rest of the day, and we'll be in touch.
Perfect. Thank you.